Hey there, and welcome to the Melanated Midlife Podcast. My name is Akilah Willery, and I am your midlife hype girl, trying to teach you all the different ways that you can redesign and take back control of your midlife experience. In this week's episode, I'm actually sharing a clip of someone else's podcast. Recently, I had a chance to appear on the Dr. Will Show podcast, which you can find and subscribe to on Apple Podcasts, where we were able to spend some time really breaking down how to put together a live event. And you already know, if you are somebody that's been a part of the podcast community here on this channel, then you know that we recently held a live in-person event. And with that live in-person event, there were so many lessons learned. I'm not saying that everything went perfectly, but I stand firmly on the fact that I think it was a success based on my personal standards, based on the feedback that we got. And Dr. Will wanted to expand on that. So if you would like to hear more about how we broke that down, all the behind the scenes lessons, then tune in to my conversation on the Dr. Will Show. Stay tuned, and we're going to share it right here.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show, the go-to business podcast for educators who want to live life on their own terms. Each episode, I'll bring in an educator, entrepreneur, author, or change maker, and we'll have no fluff conversations on personal finance, personal growth, and creating the life that you get to live, not the one you have to live. Whether you are working on yourself, your money mindset, a new business, or just trying to figure it out, your next move, this podcast is a resource for you to level up inside and outside of the classroom. Tune in, subscribe, class is always in session. Now, people, I'm recording this episode today after Thanksgiving, and I hope for those who be listening to this episode in the future had a great time with family and friends, and you are ready to be rejuvenated, inspired, and get back to work. Now, today's guest is Dr. Akilah Willery. Y'all need to know who she is. If you don't already know who she is, all right? In the ed tech game, we know her as one of the big ones who has been out here influencing and teaching and leading educators on how to reimagine technology in the classroom. But she has gotten into this entrepreneurship. She has written a book. Her podcast, listen, I'm getting shamed because I started my podcast years before her, and she has surpassed me. She's just doing it big time, big time, big time. And I want to have her on the show because recently she put on a live event. And we're going to get into that and talk about how you as an entrepreneur can launch your own live event. So for those of you listening on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Simplecast, Stitcher, Spotify, and Audible, Dr. Willery, will you please reintroduce yourself?
First of all, thank you. And I'm saying this in the spirit of Thanksgiving. I am very thankful that you and I crossed paths. And I don't even know how long ago it was now. It's been a minute when we first crossed paths. And I will say that it was in the ed tech space, in the spirit of ed tech, encouraging educators to do some courageous things in their classrooms and even think about their impact beyond the classrooms. And at that time, yeah, like I say, we were in these ed tech streets preaching the gospel and making sure that everybody knew the power that they had to make a difference. And at least on my side of the world, it's expanded a little bit. I still always introduce myself as an educator, even though I'm not actively in a classroom or with a school organization anymore. But my platform that I've created is called Melanated Midlife. And it has been birthed, I'll say, out of all the different midlife transformations that I've experienced myself. And because of talking about those experiences, some good, some traumatic, some with intention, and definitely those things that have led to my own transformation, it's all been broadening the conversation. And that's pretty much been my mission, is to make sure that more people, women of color, men of color, that are over 50, that they understand that this season that we're in, your priorities are already shifting on their own, and you don't have to sleepwalk through this time. You can actually redesign some parts of your life, some parts of what you want to accomplish. And you're coming at it with more wisdom. You're coming at it probably at a time in your life where you're more financially stable than you've ever been. And I want people to just turn the mirror to them and say, "This is my time. This is about me. This is where I may have put some things on pause because of career that I was chasing or family responsibilities, parenthood, childhood, all of the things where you were in service to someone else's expectations." And I say, this is a time now where you can shift a little bit and you can be 100% selfish. You can say, this is all about me. This is what I want to do. And I want people in the conversation to help get to that point. So I'm all about folks in midlife that are ready to take that next courageous step.
All right, all right. So people, I'm subscribed to Dr. Akila and I follow her on the socials. So I get the email, live event, seeing on the socials, and now all of a sudden I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, this is nice. This is real nice. And she drops 2 videos. So as I'm watching the first one and I'm looking at everything, I'm like, "Oh, this is okay. All right. Like, I know this person. This person did this. This is something that when I saw this, I said, this is unbelievable. Not only to look at the event and how beautiful everything looked, but even the visuals in the video and the socials, I was like, okay, I gotta have Ron to talk about this because this was just mind blowing to me. And in the show notes, there are going to be links for you to go check out those videos. So you could, if you have not seen it, you'll get a chance to watch it. So tell us about Melanated Midlife Live. What was the why behind you creating the event?
There was one big why, I'll say, and then there were some what I call sub goals or what have you. Number one, when Melanated Midlife became a thing, which, the podcast itself is on YouTube, and I tell everybody that's where I show up every week to have the conversation. So if you can't do anything else, you can flip to YouTube and you can join in the conversation at any point because I'm always there listening and engaging. But with this audience, and I will say that I obsess over the people that enter the space, the folks that come on to listen as a voyeur, as somebody that's just there to receive the message, to the people that comment on each episode, the folks that email me because I put my email out there all the time. Hey, if you got a question, I would love to hear from you. I obsess over the thoughts and the things that this community brings up because it helps feed my understanding of where other people are on this midlife journey. And I was able to understand very quickly that these are very real people that are coming into the conversation, that are entering this virtual space and wanting to connect over all of these topics. And at least with me and my husband, like I said, a lot of this was birthed out of our lived experience and some of the challenges and transitions that we've made. And the more we were able to share what we were going through, more people started showing up to talk about it. And it always felt like it was a community that we were building. And that became the forefront is that this is a community. These are people, these are real life human beings that are seeking the same thing. They are seeking community, they are seeking connection. And I remember, years ago, I don't know about anybody else, but my relationship with social media has been a little bit negative because I always saw it as something that was invasive, something that was moving too fast, things that were filled with untruths and things that were a little too glossy to be real. But since doing this and making this connection with other folks in the melanated midlife community, I realized that these were human beings. And the way I obsess over them, the more I wanted to meet them, the more I wanted to bring people into a space where we could have those conversations and it be safe spaces. I mean, I don't have to tell you or convince you that we are in a period in our country, in our history, where there are fewer and fewer safe spaces for people that look like us. There's attacks on so many different ends. If you mention the word equity, you practically have to whisper it because there's just so much opposition to the whole diversity conversation. And when we first started the podcast, Melanated Midlife, I remember thinking, do I want this to be an audio podcast where I can hide behind my, whatever, and nobody ever see me, nobody ever know if I've got on pajamas that day or if I've got makeup on or if my hair is all over my head. I was very intentional that I wanted people to see this is a Black woman sharing her lived experience as educated, somewhat successful, someone who's been around the block a few times. I wanted to share all of the warts and all. I wanted you to see that and put this Black face with the story, with whatever it is that I'm teaching. So that's a very long way of me describing that. Because of that, I wanted other people to feel safe coming together in an event where we could have those types of very rich conversations. So, did I know it was going to be exactly what it turned out? No, I just knew I wanted to bring people live and in person together. So, with my brother in law, who's been my production partner on the podcast, I remember saying very deliberately, I said, at some point, we are going to have what I call living room conversations. And I imagined it being a small, intimate space where we were going to have a couch and some pillows, and there's always wine. It doesn't matter what the vision is in my world, it always involves wine. So we were going to come together, comfy, cozy world or whatever, and have wine, and we were going to record it, and we were going to make it a safe space for Black and brown voices to be able to share whatever was going on in their midlife experience. All of that was happening in my imagination of what would one day take place, alongside the fact that I had quietly been writing a book. And it took me a year, a solid year, to get this book out of me. And once it was done, and the manuscript was starting to come together, and ended up contracting some professional help to make me kind of put a bow on it and polish it up. And it was very urgent to have this event where we bring people together for the melanated midlife community as a celebration, both for them to be able to come into this safe space, and I wanted to have something for them to take with them on their journey. And again, these are all just very abstract thoughts at the time, but little did I know that book ended up being the gift that I wanted to share with them. So it ended up being coming together as a live event for the community that was local, of course. I did have some international guests that flew in and was just awed by the fact that anybody would want to travel to come and be with me. Brought all the folks together. And so it was a podcast recording and a book release celebration. And it was everything that we could have imagined it to be. Number one, the folks showed up, and it sounds so terrible, so superficial, but they were so beautiful. Everybody showed up in like their best, like they were coming to tape Oprah show, be on Tamron Hall, all in one. I'm looking at people, and when I got up there to actually open the event and speak to them, I just had a moment. I was like, "Oh my God, you guys are so beautiful!" You really showed up, and it for some reason that felt like they took it so seriously. They took it for what it was, that this was a very sacred moment for all of this to be taking place, for whatever was going on in their world, whatever they had to put aside to make time in their schedule to be there. It was so intentional and so beautiful. And I hope that when people go back and look at the recording and how we edited, I mean, a lot that we had to edit in, edit out, or whatever. I hope they get a sense of that. I vowed in front of those folks live on the spot. I said, we're here for the first event. This will not be the last. And my goal is that we can have it again in early 2026. I don't know if it'll be at the same scale as it was for the first one, but I'm vowing to do it again because it fed my spirit and my soul as much as the folks that were there said it impacted them.
Mm. So take us behind the scenes of planning a live event. Walk us through your planning process.
Well, and this is me with no marketing experience, no nothing. All that I know is truly just by trial and error. But I know that you have to put the feelers out there pretty early, number one, to see does anybody even care to be a part of a live event. And so thankfully, I do put emails and newsletters out every single week, and I'm constantly asking for feedback. I'm constantly listening to what it is that people are looking for. If they showed up for a newsletter, showed up for a podcast episode, and they comment, I am bugging those people like crazy for feedback. Let me know, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking? What do you want? What are you looking for? And it was people will tell you if you listen, you shut up talking, and this is crazy from someone that hosts a podcast. If you shut up talking long enough, give people enough space to express themselves, they'll tell you everything that you are seeking to know about them, their situation, and all that jazz. And it kind of started early this because the event, let me back up, took place November 1st. So with us recording this, Thanksgiving holiday weekend, we're just 3 weeks beyond it. So we first started talking about it in the summer. Can we do this? And I'll go back. It was very early summer because at the time I was still very much involved in finishing and polishing the book. And I said, okay, if we do this, then, we're going to have it as a book release celebration. And that timeline of planning the event and putting the feelers out there, telling people that a live event was coming, it put me to the fire. I had my own butt to the flame because that meant I now made a promise that this is going to happen, and I'm not going to go back on my promise to folks that genuinely were excited about it. So I didn't want to do one of those where, hey, we're going to have something. Oops, my bad. We had to cancel or we had to postpone. That just wasn't going to take place. I'm like, if all we do is get together and have crackers and cheese, we're going to pull this off. So from late spring, early summer, started putting the feelers out there. Reception of, yes, a live event sounds fantastic. Let us know. Then started also putting feelers out there that, hey, we've got a book that we're going to be sharing. Don't know what it's going to look like, or anything like that. But all of these things are going to intersect. So I guess altogether, it took about 4 or 5 months to really make it a reality. And the original idea, this was a lesson and it's something I'm still working on, is that when you host an event, there might be some idea like, oh, we're gonna make a ton of money. We're gonna charge people tickets to get in and all that jazz. Let me just say flat out, no, there was no money made. It was completely self-funded. I wanted to have some sponsors. I wanted to have some brand deals in place where we could possibly have some a little bit of cushion to make it even more elaborate. And it just didn't come together. I mean, had I taken a little more time to reach out and maybe had some team assistance to do some outreach, we probably could have gotten some sponsors that could have made it even better because I was thinking that I wanted the audience to come in and have gift bags for everybody and maybe some type of big raffles where we could give away really cool, huge prizes. I'm still in that ed tech mindset of giving electronics and tinkering things away. That didn't happen. So just know I'm saying this publicly on your podcast as well, that when the next one comes around, that is a goal. If anybody's listening to this and they want to be in on sponsoring another live event, give me a call because I hope to make it bigger and better. It's all with this idea that, again, if people are making time and setting aside a part of their schedule to be with you, to be a part of this venture, I just wanted them to feel loved as they came through there. If that meant showering them with great food, great wine always, or if it was just filling them up with inspiration, whatever it was, I wanted to be able to give. And so a lot of the timeline in planning was giving, and again, time to make sure the book was ready, and then time to put together pieces that would make it worth people's time of being there. So like I said, about 4 or 5 months is about the timeline that it took to put it all together.
With budgeting, logistics, speakers, marketing, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Which part tested you the most, and how did you figure it out?
Well, I'll say the part that tested me the most really was the book itself, the timeline for getting the book ready, because I wanted that to be the central part of the celebration because I'm a two-time author, but this one book, Melanated Midlife, was very much a labor of love because it is what I consider a manual for people that are going through midlife, specifically women of color that are feeling the transition, but they don't quite know what to do with those feelings. And everything about the book and having it launched live in that space, I wanted everybody to feel like they've now got the tools that they need to go and do their thing. And that was very important to me. I wanted it to land just that way. And I am very grateful to God, the universe, everything that made that moment possible, because that is exactly the message that was received with women that have told me what their experience was like. And I think that's the main thing is that we have all this about, being authentic and stepping out there on faith or whatever. Yeah, that was all true. I was taking this event very personally because it wasn't about me. I wanted the people that were coming to feel everything that I wanted to shower them with. I wanted them to walk away from this event completely filled up, making sure that they walked away with the book that gave them all those tools, all that inspiration that weighed very heavily on me. And so it did come together, and I say this with all gratitude for everyone that was a part of it, that thank God it landed exactly that way. So I've gotten a lot of feedback since the event and the book launch that the emotion that they felt in the room, the emotion that they felt from the messages from the panelists and everything, it continued after they left that day and they started reading the book. And I've had a few messages that were left from me that were truly emotional where and I get emotional thinking about it, but folks say that they cried just reading the first section, and they were like, "I don't even know if I can finish it because I'm so emotional," and I've heard that over and over again, and I'm like, "Okay, then mission accomplished. It did what it was supposed to."
So how did you go about selecting your panelists, the folks that you interviewed? What qualities were you looking for to make the conversation real, relevant, and transformational?
Well, I tell you, anybody that listens to the podcast, if they go back, if they're fans of the podcast, they will see that the people that were on the panel have been guests in the podcast chair with me. So the ladies that were there, Charlotte Stallings, Tara Stidham, and Angela Brock, when I say they are super badasses, they are the super badass women that I want to learn from. And I say that very humbly, that each of these women, when they individually appeared in their own separate podcast episodes with me, I sat there and I was just like, oh my God, we could keep talking forever. I'm learning so much. Please, can we continue this? Would you like to be a part of an event? And when I asked each of them if they would be interested in being a panelist on a future event, I said it exactly like that because it hadn't really come together yet. I knew that I was going to do something that would be live and in person to bring the community together. But the beautiful thing that I feel very blessed that they all said yes blindly because I didn't have anything to prove to them that it was going to be fantastic. I didn't have anything to say, hey, here's a sample of how it's going to look. Or I mean, there was none of that. I just said, can you say yes? Can I get you on board now while I'm still building it, while I'm still figuring it out? And to their credit, every single one of them said yes immediately. There was no hesitation, no nothing. They were like, whatever you got, we're on board. We have faith in you, and we're going to help you bring it to reality. And so the women and the men that have ever been on the podcast, I fangirl them myself. I try very hard to, number one, respect their message, respect their expertise, because with the ladies that were there on the podcast, oh, excuse me, on the event, the panelists, they all have different areas of expertise. And I wanted diverse conversations, not just the diversity of the people, because it's all women and men of color, but also the diverse messages that everyone would receive that day. So we had expertise on budgeting, which is Angela's area. Charlotte Stallings is she is a badass on multiple areas, but in particular, just about following your bold ideas, betting on yourself and understanding the business end of who you want to be. And Tara's story is just phenomenal and inspirational and very emotional. but she's putting it all out there about dating and relationships at this age. And it was, these are all stories and I'm just like, oh my God, we got to put this in front of more people. We got to keep this conversation going. Can you join me on stage to do all of this live? And instant yes from each one of them. And looking back, and don't get me wrong, I mean, with all the folks that we've had on the podcast before, there are a couple of others that I also added because the initial idea was to have this giant panel. Well, I won't say giant, but a bigger panel, about double the size. And there were a few that just truly were not able to be. Nobody said no, but there were a couple that weren't able to be there simply because they weren't going to be in the city on that day. But eventually, like I said, when we do round 2 or round 3 or round 12, I'm gonna bring some of my favorites back because it was just too good not to do it again. But yeah, I think ultimately the ladies that were there, they showed up and showed out,
So how did you work the event?
shared that everything that I could have dreamed it would have been.
So how did you work the event so that it would be from a both strategical position as well as marketing, that it would provide a showcase for your podcast as well as to highlight and launch your book and serve as a platform for your new melanated midlife redesign lab?
Well, a lot of luck, I think, because again, I'm somebody that's still figuring out the marketing side of it. But one thing I have learned and have just accepted is the podcast itself. If the audience is there and you talk about the things that they want to hear, because they will ask questions, they will make comments. I make sure that the market is speaking directly to them. One thing that has helped throughout this entire journey of planning the event, of just marketing the podcast and the book, is I've got to understand that this is not about me. It might be my face on the picture. It might be my face on the book, but the stories, the lessons is about the person that is picking up that book, the person that is tuning in to the podcast, the lady that drove across town to be sitting in that seat for the live event. It is about them. And I'm able to take some of my nerves, some of my cringe, all of the things, and I can get out of my own head when I realize that this is for them to experience something special. And all of the messages that you would have seen from me on social media leading up to that, because I basically marketed it through my social media channels and through email. Very simple, you know. And once I decided because it's me and I have a few other folks helping me out, literally. And we on my LinkedIn, you would have seen on my Facebook posts that it was really talking directly to that one person. And it seemed to work. As long as they were able to imagine themselves in that seat, imagine themselves being a part of it, it was a win. And being able to do it with the idea that it's, I don't know, again, that you don't have to take it so seriously. Folks will see me show up sometimes with my bifocals on, with makeup on, sometimes right after I finish a workout and I look all tomato faced and hair is all over the place. I have to make sure that I get the message out, that it's about the message, that it's about the person that needs to receive that message that day. And then it seems to all kind of come together.
How did you design moments for connection and belonging? And what surprised you the most about the energy in the room?
I'll take it all the way back to my ed tech days. And when I was an executive director in a school district for the instructional technology space, we hosted a state conference every year. And this was way back pre-COVID, say this like back in history, way back in pre-COVID days. And we hosted this in-person conference that we did pretty much. We raised money for an entire year to deliver this experience at zero cost to the attendees. And that felt good, that people could show up, forget about problems, and just enjoy themselves. And I do the same thing when I'm entertaining in my personal home. If you just show up, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to have the food. I'm going to have the drinks. I'm going to have the entertainment. I'm going to make sure if you want to take your shoes off and lay on the carpet, whatever, to get comfy, I'm going to make sure that you're able to do that in a nice, safe, comfortable space. Same thing for this event. If you're going to rearrange your schedule to be there in person, I'm just going to love on you all that I can. So when folks showed up, I had family members, I had a few volunteers that were helping out. The first thing is that I wanted them to be greeted. I wanted somebody at the door to just say hello. Thanks for being here. So glad you're here, or whatever. And at that time, people, and this is another thing I will also say, we always want to make the jokes about being on CP time. My folks that showed up, they were there on time. They were beautiful, number one. They showed up on time and they walked in the door smiling, ready for the experience. So they brought the energy and we just made sure that we protected that. And that was the thing, we had it kind of set up, like I said, in living room conversations, but it was a much bigger space. We had roughly about 50, between 50 and 60 people in the room. And had there been one additional person, it would have been too tight. But they were able to be in nice, comfy, cushiony chairs. We did have food. We did have sangria, wine and other things to keep the spirits nice and light. We had a DJ, of course. Remember, I'm with the over 50 crowd, so we had a lot of 90s and early 2000 jams that were going. I said, set the vibe, and we're just going to make sure we keep it going. And folks walked in, and everybody was at ease. Everybody was relaxed. Whatever was weighing them down before they got there, they were able to just enjoy themselves for a couple of hours. And that was the spirit that I wanted to protect. And once they, like, again, I looked at it as just hosting a big party in my house. You show up and I'm gonna make sure you're taken care of.
So, what conversations happened after the panel that confirmed that this event was necessary?
A lot of emotional responses. And just like we were saying, talking directly to those people, I heard that over and over again where the people were saying, I felt like you were in my head. I felt like you were speaking directly to me. I felt like you knew my story. And that is was the target. I wanted everyone to, number one, see themselves in the stories that were being shared by the panelists, by myself, and even, from the podcasts in general, past podcasts where they were just like, I get it. Because the whole goal is that we have a complete community of midlife folks that realize whatever it is that they've been hesitating with, whatever the dream is, whatever the shift is that they want to make, that yes, it is possible for you to do these big, bold things that you're hearing spoken around you. And all credit to the ladies that were there on the panel. Again, Angela Brock, Charlotte Stallings, and Tara Stidham. They talk about their successes from a very personal, vulnerable space of, I was here, these things happened in my life, and here's how I picked myself back up. All three of them, if you go back and look at the live event, or if you look at their individual appearances on the podcast, they started from some very painful places. Their shift happened after something in life threw them a curveball, and they were kind of forced to figure some things out. They were knocked out of their safety and comfort zone, and they had to figure out another way, whatever that would have been. And from there, great things started happening. And so with the ladies and the few men that were in the audience, for them to say, oh, you know what? I get it. I'm in a weird place right now, but what I want to do is possible because I heard it here, or because we talked about challenges openly and how you can put these tools, in your back pocket to make things happen. And I'll also say one other thing with, I'm bragging on the ladies that traveled internationally. I had one audience member that had come in from Jamaica, and this was happening when the hurricane was hitting Jamaica. Gosh, what was the name of the hurricane? I'm totally forgetting. But it was just within the past month, completely destroyed the island. But she was able to leave and get to the mainland here in Houston safely. And as a part of the time that she was here, waiting out the time to get back to Jamaica to home, she wanted to come to the event. And she said to me personally, she was so glad that she was there because not only was she safe from the elements, and she was here with family that was also safe, she got the inspiration that she needed at her tender age. And I say her tender age was a very advanced age. She got the inspiration she needed to go and do something career-wise that she had been sitting on, a dream that she had been deferring for decades, and decided that she was going to go back to Jamaica and do that. And when I heard that, I mean, you talk about a moment. where I'm like, "Wow, this happened here? You got that feeling here? Thank you. I wanted to hear that," and other folks, it was more stories like that again and again after the event was closing down, and people just wanted to stop and share that, and so I was very grateful to be able to have been a part of folks receiving that message and that inspiration.
So earlier you mentioned that you didn't sell tickets, which I think for people who will be thinking about this and have the idea of, hey, I'm going to want to do this at some point in time. But how did you measure the success of your live event since you did not have, receipts to go by?
Well, actually, I did. Because
Oh,
my personal goal, even though we didn't charge admittance into the event, we did sell books at the event.
okay.
So my goal was if every person walked out of there with a book, which they purchased, and everybody wanted a signed copy, which was kind of cool. If everybody walked out of there with a book, I would deem it a financial success. And I am here to tell you publicly that that is exactly what happened. So not only did they buy books, but they bought multiple books
Okay.
because it was once people started getting the message and feeling good about being there, they wanted to buy for someone else. Oh, this is for my sister. This is for my girlfriend. This is for my book club or what have you. And so that was my personal goal. Very arbitrary. Nobody was going to show up from the IRS and say, "Oh, you didn't meet your quota." That was my goal, was to make sure that everybody walked out of there with a book, and that is exactly what happened.
That's all right. Hey, I love that. Love that. I need to be doing something myself like that because I've always wanted to do it. I've just been putting it off. And then to see what you did, I was like, okay.
You
I,
should, and I'll tell you, you put it out there, like right now, if you say where we are right now in time, November, Thanksgiving weekend, you set that goal. And this is something I do with my clients, my coaching clients. I make them have some type of public declaration of whatever that goal is, no matter how small it is. It could be that they're going to declutter one kitchen drawer. It could be that they're going to clean out their closet of all the clothes that don't fit anymore. Doesn't matter what the goal is, you have to publicly declare that to somebody. If you text it to a friend, if you put it in a voicemail message, if you don't do anything but say it to me and I'm going to check in on you in a week, you got to tell it to somebody else that will hold you accountable for it. And however that looks for you, that puts again, I say the same thing with me with this event. Once I said I was going to do it, it lit a fire under my own butt. And the humiliation of saying, I can't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't fulfill the promise was a lot. And I know for folks to be able to say, "Oh, I didn't do it or I failed or whatever. Sometimes for us, that's so for you. If I were giving you advice, I would say, if this is something that is on your heart, doesn't matter what it looks like. You don't have to have it figured out, but just say, this is what I'm going to do. Give me 6 months, give me 3 months, whatever arbitrary date into the future is. And I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to fulfill this promise to myself. You will do it. It doesn't matter how ugly it is. It doesn't matter how big, how small. You just have to put it out there, and then you will figure out a way to make those dots come together over time. Things will illuminate in your vision, in your path, that will help you get to whatever that goal is. So it's something that, like I said, I say this to my clients all the time, and I haven't had not one client that it didn't work with. When they keep it a secret, when they keep it, locked in the back of their mind in, their secret desires, of course, they can keep lying to themselves for whatever amount of time. But when you put it out there publicly, when you say it to somebody and you put a date on it, it magically happens.
all right. I'm about to get to it then. So looking back, what would you say or what would you do differently? And what did you do that you said this worked so well? I know next time I'll be doing it the same way.
One thing that I would probably do differently, like I said, I would probably get more professional help. Because we did this very grassroots, very self-funded, and it worked. So don't get me wrong. I don't say I don't have regrets about the way we did things this time. But now that I've gone through and done the entire process, whether it was the outreach, the marketing, the everything, I would bring in more professionals that would do the work for me. So we did have professional catering. We had the drinks that were put together by a professional bartender, brought in a DJ, had some help with a few other things, but I would rather sit down with a team of maybe 4 or 5 people and just say, here's the vision. Can y'all go do it? That's probably what I would do differently the next time. The other thing I will say is with the bigger idea of bringing in other groups, other sponsors or whatever, I still want to bring in some products, some brands that cater specifically to this audience because I want them to understand the power of their dollar. I want to be able to highlight small businesses that are owned by Black and brown faces, particularly women-owned businesses, and just to have that curated space of things that I like and love and feel aligned with my values. And I'm recognizing that a lot of my values, it's universal and aligned to other midlife women because our stories are very similar. So that's something that I think I would probably do differently. That being said, again, I will repeat, I don't have any regrets about the event and putting it out there publicly to that I was going to do it, whatever because it landed exactly like it was supposed to, but I wanna keep elevating it. I still got goals to keep doing it better, and I liken it to, like I said, experiences, and in this day and age, post-COVID, where we've done a lot of things virtually, even you and I, we have developed this relationship across states, and it's great. I'm very grateful that we have the technology that allows us to do this, but I still think that the human to human, soul to soul connections that we are able to make when we're in the same space, in the same room, I want to continue to make that possible for this community because there's a certain aspect of our humanity that I think we just have to be very protective of. And with us in front of screens and doing so many things with automations and technology or whatever, it is great for handling some of the things that take a lot of time, but I still want humans to be together. I want us to be able to share love and share inspiration and just protect that very fiercely.
So I want to touch on your book for a minute before we close this out. And people, I got her book, Melanated Midlife, and we can call it, and in your book, Midlife Redesign Manual. What made you write that book, particularly at this time? Given you have this podcast going and it's growing and other things and irons that you have in the pot right now, what made you say, okay, I got to do this book? Because even in watching the video, it was mentioned how you were like, yeah, I'm gonna do this book. But then one of the panelists like, yeah, okay, I made this phone call to say, hey, you get in contact with Dr. Aquila, and things started to move in motion. Why this book? Why now?
I tell you, this book, number one, it was a life goal. There were a few things that I, had a checklist as that good girl that always played by the rules. There were a lot of things, and as an educator, we shared this where there is a certain path that we all just kind of go down as educators, where we do the work, we put our life and souls into the impact of impacting other young minds and getting to the point where I could say, I'm now an author. I'm able to write something that will be an archive to the human race one day and be able to look back on it, all of that. But the other thing is that when my husband and I started making some shifts in our lives through and this is not all rosy. So let me say that our midlife transition, the things that we did from downsizing our home, once the kids were gone and off on their journey, downsizing the home and moving to the center of the city and offloading a lot of things and changing careers. As we were doing these things, friends and loved ones started asking a lot of questions. Why? Why are you selling your house? Why are you deciding to move, to willingly move into an apartment? And, instead of living the American dream of just retiring out there and riding off into the sunset kind of thing, why are you choosing to do this? Why are you selling two-thirds of your belongings? Why, all of the things. They were genuinely concerned. But as the conversations continued to happen, questions that sounded like concern were just curiosity. And they were like, well, not only why are you doing it, how are you going to pull this off? Tell us about the benefit. And those questions started to sound less like criticism and more like people were interested in learning for themselves. That people started questioning, is the path that we've all been going down with, the suburban house and, staying at a job for 35 years and retiring with a pension, which pensions just don't exist anymore. All of those things that were a part of our regular lives for previous generations, they were starting to not exist anymore. And alternative ways of living out your dreams, your goals over 50 were starting to pop up in different places. And with us in particular, taking care of, a four-bedroom house and having a big yard and having a $700 monthly light bill, those things started to feel very heavy in our world. And all we wanted to do was go out to dinner on a weekday, on school night. We wanted to be able to go to a jazz concert, or we wanted to just be someplace. It's going to sound terrible, where we weren't hearing a lot of kids running around having their open playground. We wanted to be with grown-ups because that phase of our lives, it had concluded. Our children, we have two sons. They didn't need us in the same way. They didn't necessarily want to come home for the long Thanksgiving week and spend every moment with mom and dad. They had their own interest in their own circles. And so we had to start turning inwardly and start thinking, what do we want to do? What's in it for us now? Now that we've got all this time where we're not chasing after football practice or track practice or orchestra, theater rehearsal, whatever, we're able to come home and be completely wide open of what we wanted to do. And so all of those experiences and those conversations with loved ones, we started hearing the same questions over and over again. How did you do it? What was the benefit? How much money are you saving? What are you doing with your money? How are you investing it differently now that you've offloaded all of these other financial commitments? And so I was like, okay, we need to chronicle all of this. And that's how the podcast came out, where we could talk through this out. We could have people come in and share their midlife stories about how they made transitions. What are the challenges? What are the regrets? How does life look when you decide to sell your house and move to a beachside? How does it look like if you decide to sell everything and just travel for 6 months or whatever, and you decide that this is what I want? I'm not concerned about other people's expectations. All of that, those conversations were so rich. I said, I got to get this written down. And it started with our story and being able to say, these are the areas that I felt where our transition had some monumental impacts. And for me, that was three key areas: with my career, or with anyone's midlife career, with the way it basically, I say, the way you make money, the way you live at home, and then how you set personal boundaries. So with your career, your home, and with yourself. Those are the three areas that I feel are very key. And if one of those areas is feeling heavy, it causes everything about your midlife to go into misalignment. If you're feeling like you've been too loose with your personal boundaries, you feel obligated to other people. If your house is no longer fitting who you are today, and like I said, when we're younger, we buy the big house. We pay the crazy HOA fees because we want a certain lifestyle or whatever. We will drive 50 miles outside the city because we know the schools are better. But when those things about what school somebody goes to is no longer a part of your reality, you're like, okay, well, where else can I go? If I decide that I want to not cook dinner anymore and I want to hire somebody else to bring in food for me. What does that look like? What does it cost? How much does it cost to be me at this age for the life that I want to live? To be able to write that down based on the conversations that we've been having over and over again with loved ones and with our expanded circle. And then as the podcast grew and the conversations that were growing from there, to be able to take all of that and condense it down into what I consider a midlife manual, that was my gift back to the community. It's like, if you truly want to do this, if you're tuning in to this every week and you're hearing these conversations and they're inspiring you and you feel like, okay, I'm right here at the edge of the cliff and I want to jump, I want to do this fantastic thing or chase after this big goal, but I just need a little bit of how to. I need a little bit of the steps or somebody tell me the risks to reassure me, then this is the book that they would need to have. And I tell you, so far the reception has been very positive. I hope people continue to buy it, not just because I want you to book. Yeah, I want you to buy my book. I say that with no shame. Yeah, go please buy my book. I put a lot of love and a lot of hours into it. I tell the story that the way I was able to get the book out, I set my alarm clock for 5 a.m. every morning because I work from home. So I was able to go directly from my pillow to my laptop, and I made myself write from 5 a.m. For about 2 hours every day. Some of it was complete crap. Some of it was great. Some of it was edited out, but it got to a nice condensed, polished down version. But yeah, it is for everyone that is at this stage that is thinking, what if? Then you take this book. Hopefully, it answers some questions and allows you to reflect on truly what you want to do. Because I tell folks all the time, my version of a midlife transition will look totally different from yours. And I want it to look totally different because you have your own personal goals. You have your own desires. You have your own lived experience. And I want you to be as selfish as possible in this midlife season because it's short. It's a very short window of time before we get to that marginal decade. And this is, what the longevity doctors are now calling once we hit our mid 70s and beyond, that things about our independence, about our mobility, about our brain health will change very differently. So by the time you hit 50 and you hit that time of 70, 75 years old, that is that sweet spot for you to be as selfish and as adventurous as you want to be, because there will be a day, time, nature will slow you down whether you want to or not. And I don't want you to get to that point at 90 years old with a bunch of regret thinking, I wish I would have tried that one thing. So this is their permission slip.
It's all right. People, go get the book. Go get the book. Like I said, I have it. Go get it. Okay. I'm just gonna say it right now. Get it. Gonna be links in the show notes for you to go purchase the book. And what I like about it is not only the personal perspective it comes from, but how you challenge the reader to think bigger and live bigger. And that is it's not easy to do for people, I guess, of our generation, because not that we are the boomers who for sure knew they were going to go work for some place for 30, 40 years, get a watch and go home. But
Yep.
a lot of us still in this Gen X have that mentality of, I want to get somewhere that's comfortable
Hmm.
and I'm just gonna go to work and show up. And it may be where you end up working at two companies instead of one, but the idea of I'm gonna job hop or I'm gonna just do all of these things is very unfamiliar for people, in our age. And
Yeah.
so, so when you're thinking about, being bold and upgrading your vision and how do you move forward, whether or not you've been laid off or, because you could just still be one of those people. Because I was having this conversation with my wife and my sister, even from educators. If you start teaching at 21 and you actually retire, like you put in your full time, you could
Yep.
be 50 years old and be done, right? That retirement check is in the mail. What are you going to do for the next period of your life? What does that
Hmm.
look like? Right. So that
Yep.
transition, if you look at that perspective, it's not one of those transitions where you got a letter being told you've been laid off. You've
Yep.
just put in your time and it's now for a new chapter to begin. So love the book. Go ahead.
I wanna give you your flowers because the work that you're doing and the inspiration that you put out there for edupreneurship. Remember, this was the first conversation that we recorded, and at the time, I was and still am. My area that I love to protect is with educators. I still introduce myself as an educator, even though, again, not in the classroom anymore. But the message that you're putting out there about folks that have had full careers in education, you're right. If you do that quick math, somebody that comes straight out of college at 21, 22 years old has a full 25-year, 30-year career in education, that only puts you max at your early 50s. And you probably, hopefully, assuming good health and barring any natural disasters, that you're still here for another 40 years. What else are you going to do? So, with your message of being able to be out there and monetize your talents, which educators, I feel I'm very biased. I think educators are the most talented people of any profession because we have had to be very industrious with so little in so many spaces. I don't think people realize that there's so much that they are able to then turn and do, whether it's as a business or in some other way of expanding their career. So, with you out here delivering this message very consistently, I think that that needs to be just shouted from the rooftops in the education space that you do some math of what age you will be when you're so-called at retirement at the end of that education career. So you're not necessarily leaving education because you're burned out or you just hate it. But if you have done it, like myself, I did it for 23 years and loved all of it. But it got to a point where I was just like, "Okay, what else am I supposed to be doing?" And I've still very young in my 50s. I'm like, "I got a lot of time to eat and pay the lights." So, what else can I contribute that will allow me to still be here and be comfortable? So, I hope that you continue to hear the impact that your work and your message is having because it needs to be out there. This is worthy work. Educators and particularly need to hear your message because they have so many gifts that they can contribute, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to stay narrow to just one industry. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you. Alhamdulillah. Thank you. I appreciate it. I just want educators to find that entrepreneurial spirit within themselves, whether they start a business or they become contractors with another company, or just have the mindset that changes how they think about teaching and themselves, because, we have been around colleagues, whether it's at a conference, outside of school, or in the hallway, teachers lounge where folks are having their time, right? And they're talking about how maybe they're being beaten down or things aren't the way it used to be for them, or they're getting to a point to where whether it's burnout or they're just really thinking about their place in the profession. I don't want them to suffer, you know. I want them to think of themselves as a business of one. And if that school district ain't where you need to be, then you need to go. If that
Yep.
grade level isn't working for you, you need to go. That subject area, etc. And you have to go get another endorsement so you can go to do something else, then go make it happen. I just want educators to know that they are in control, not their school district, of what their happiness should look like. And
Mhm.
so even if you don't create a business, just having that mindset of I have ownership over what I'm able to do, accomplish, and provide for myself and my family. That's the greater mindset that I hope that with my book and my podcast, I'm able to deliver.
Yeah, I agree. It's for everybody, and like I said, my bias is for educators, but in any industry that they understand that wherever you work, whatever talents that you are trading for dollars, you need to understand the ownership of what you can contribute. And if and when that current job ends, and I say this very bluntly to both my clients and people that listen to the podcast, does not matter what kind of job you are, doesn't matter what industry you are in, every job is temporary. It will end at some point, whether you choose to end it and sever ties with the organization or if they come in and decide for you, at some point that job will come to a close. And what will you do in that time? Have you saved enough? Have you invested well? Have you figured out another way to offer your talents in a different space? These are all things that we need to consider constantly. So, if nothing else, I want people to understand what is the other lever I'm gonna pull when my current gig ends, and just be ready for that. And you will probably have a little I won't say less stress, but, hopefully you'll have at least that one thing of life, of all the stressors figured out so that you're never caught off guard, and I don't want anybody to be caught off guard when their current professional situation shifts. Be ready, understand your value, and how you can make an impact someplace else.
All right. So before we go, what's the one piece of advice you have for someone who is interested in hosting a live event? And what's one mistake first time event creators should avoid?
One thing I'll say is to give yourself a long enough runway and think of what your real life situation is right now. So don't go too far. Don't say this is something I'm gonna do in 10 years. I'm saying within the calendar year, what is it? What's gonna be a good time and space to pull this off? So if we're talking like right now at the end of 2025, if you're saying I need a year because I want to raise money, which that is a very real thing, think about how much of your personal money do you want to put into this, or do you want to bring in people that are going to sponsor for you? And if the more that you're going to involve other entities, I think you need to give yourself a little more time. So no more than a year, but definitely don't expect to pull it off next week. But that's a big thing is understand how much it's going to cost you. The other thing I would say is that think about big picture what you want the vibe to be. You can host an event any place in any space. It doesn't matter if it's in a museum, if it's in a library, conference room, if you rent out a hotel space, if you have it just in a open park that's beautiful or what have you. Think about what you want the vibe to be. Do you want people to come in and like me, I wanted soft, cushy furniture. I wanted folks to be able to spread out and not be on top of each other. Do you want it to be where it's a party vibe? Do you want it very business-like? Do you want it to be very, uh, very tight with, like, where people are going to do some serious professional networking? What does it need to feel like for the person that is walking in the door? Not you. This is not like your wedding and it's all about the bride. This is about the people that are gathering to receive something in exchange for their time. The other thing I will also say is for yourself personally, understand what is success going to look like. And for me, like I told you, success for me was if every person that attended walked out of there buying a book. I was able to sit back at the end of the day and, everything was electronic. So I was able to go back and look at the numbers and say, yep, we hit it. We made that goal. That was for me. For you, it could be maybe success is going to be if, I don't know, if you charge admission and everybody's willing to pay the admission without any trouble. If you're able to get the event fully sponsored and you don't have to come out of pocket. If you have something bigger that you're launching as a result of that event and the event is the big reveal, that could be another measure of success. But you need to make sure what is that going to look like for you. And that is how you just make sure that you keep yourself grounded without the event going completely off course. And have some sense of humor about it. If you take it too seriously and you don't have fun or enjoy it yourself, you will give off a certain vibe that will just wreck it for everyone that is there. So just understand that number one, it's not about us. We can be the face of it, we can be the brand behind it, but ultimately just keep your mind about the people that are coming to spend time with you in that space. That is key. But more than anything, like I said, no more than a calendar year. And the more that you're gonna bring in other people's money, give yourself enough time to share and communicate that vision. But absolutely, publicly declare what you're going to do, and it
Mhm.
will hold your butt to the fire, and you'll be glad that you did it.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Dr. Akila, for coming on the show.
I appreciate being here. You better invite me back. I don't know what we got going on in the future, but we gonna do another one.
That's hey, you're welcome back anytime. Now, people, you know how I do this. This podcast episode is going to be on all major podcast platforms, but I'm trying to really grow on Apple Podcasts. So I need you to subscribe and to share with your network and leave me some reviews and some stars because I'm trying to be found because I'm trying to get Oprah on the show. Yes, I am. So we can do big because I want to know that we're doing big things around here.
Yeah.
Again, I'd like to thank my guest, Dr. Akila Willery, for coming on and dropping so many gems, and for you for checking out another episode of the Dr. Will Show, the mobile university for entrepreneurs. As always, people, invest in you, EDU. Peace.